I'll start with the last line I said to her because it keeps echoing in my head like a car alarm in a quiet neighborhood. Take whatever you want. I'm in it too. She stood in our doorway with that tote bag that says support your local bookstore like she's single-handedly keeping literature alive by buying cinnamon candles. And I waved a hand like a lazy traffic cop. Keys, plants, the cast iron skillet she swore I'd seasoned wrong. All of it. She didn't take the skillet. She did take the blender, which I bought. She took the good towels, the ones we never used because they were for guests, which is a category of human that exists mostly in commercials. She even took the doormat that said welcome, ISH. Then she turned in the doorway and said something like, "You never listen," and walked out. I watched her taillights shrink at the end of our block in Columbus, the red dots merging with the streetlights, and I just stood there. It was a Tuesday in September. The kind of day that wants to be fall, but it's still humid enough that your shirt sticks to your back like a clingy ex. We'd been together 4 years, living together for 3. And just like that, no real explanation, just volume. She was gone. If this were one of those movies where a character learns a valuable lesson after jogging in the rain, I'd say I immediately made tea and journaled. Nope. I sat on the floor and ate dry cereal out of the box because she took the bowls. I'm not exaggerating. The bowls. I took a picture of the cabinet like it was a crime scene. Empty shelves. One lonely mug that says world's okayest cook. My mug. Fitting. Anyway, I did what any ordinary guy does in that first wave after being screamed at for reasons that feel like they were drafted by a committee, walked aimlessly around the apartment, picked things up, put them down, scrolled some more, stared at the wall above the couch because now the framed abstract print she insisted on buying was gone. It left 4 very honest holes in the drywall. We were a level and anchors couple for exactly one project, and even that was a debate. We did not agree about the importance of a stud finder. That should have been a sign. 2 days later, I came home from work at the garage. Yeah, I'm that guy, the one who can tell you why your check engine light is on without explaining it like a TED Talk. And I was still doing that thing where quiet feels like it's staring at you. I turned on the TV just for noise. Baseball pregame show. The Reds were about to blow another one, and I was ready to let them. I opened the fridge, which looked like a hotel minibar after 3 weddings. 1 beer, a jar of pickles, and a lemon that had taken a dark turn. That's when I noticed the silver rectangle on the dining table. Her laptop. I don't know if you've ever seen the last thing a person leaves behind, but it has the personality of a stranded suitcase. There was her sticker-covered laptop. National Parks, a fox, a tiny be kind, sitting like a middle school hall monitor. I didn't touch it. Not at first. I told myself, not my business. I swear to you, I gave it a full 24 hours. I moved around it like it was a sleeping dog you don't want to startle. I set my keys next to it, then moved my keys because the clink sounded too dramatic. I did the dishes in the sink, my plate and the pan from a sad grilled cheese, like I was suddenly someone who cleans with purpose. All that time, the laptop just sat there, radiating don't you dare. But listen, there's something about silence and a glowing apple on a lid that turns a person into a philosopher. I made myself a rule. If it was locked with a password, I'd close it and send the "hey, you forgot your thing" text like a decent person. If it wasn't, well, then it's like leaving your car running with the door open. That's on you. I opened the laptop. It woke up like a cat, light blooming across the screen. No password. I don't know if she forgot to set one or assumed I would never look. Either way, I watched her desktop pop up like a personality test. 3 folders named taxes, photos, and stuff. Everybody has a stuff folder. It's where shame goes to nap. I didn't click anything at first. The guilt had weight. Then a notification slid in from the corner. Messages. Her friend Cassie. You okay? The bubble just sat there, waiting. I clicked. The chat opened. And yeah, I know. That's the line. But lines get blurrier when someone has already argued their way out of the room without telling you why. I scrolled. Look, I'm not going to pretend I was Sherlock. It took about 12 seconds to understand. There were messages. A pattern. Names that weren't mine. A guy named Trevor with a blue check on something irrelevant. A "we still on" from a different number. Dates that lined up with evenings I was working late. She wasn't just out with the girls. She was, let's say, keeping a schedule. 6 months worth of it. I felt a noise rise in my throat, like when you swallow wrong. I wanted to throw the laptop into the drywall holes just to see if it stuck there like a cartoon. I stood up, sat down, stood up again, paced. My heart wasn't dramatic, it was annoyed, like, really? At least be original. I picked up the laptop, raised it like I was going to slam dunk it into the trash. Then I put back down. I don't know why I didn't do it. Maybe because breaking stuff doesn't undo anything. Maybe because buying a new laptop would mean more money I don't have. Maybe because that world's okayest cook mug was looking at me like, relax, sport. Set. I stared at her messages again. The light from the screen painted the table like a hospital scene. And then I noticed something I should have seen immediately. Her account was still logged in. Not just messages. All of it. Email, socials, notes, calendar. Like she took the blender and forgot the battery. I know what you're thinking. This is that fork in the road where good sense says, close the lid, text her to pick it up, go for a walk, make a salad, be an adult. I wanted to be that guy. I really did. But then another thought walked into my head in a nice suit and said, or hear me out. What if we have a little fun without breaking any actual rules? No leaks, no names dragged, nothing that'd get anyone fired or harmed or whatever. I'm not that guy. But petty? Gentle chaos? Atticus Finch probably would have logged out and gone to read on the porch. I'm not Atticus. I'm more of a, let's put the pickles on the top shelf so they're hard to find guy. I'm going to jump ahead and tell you it worked. It worked, so, well, I slept like a baby for the first time in a week. But I'll walk you through it, because the details are where the satisfaction lives. First, I did something that even my mom would call fair. I sent myself an email from her account with every calendar event that lined up with the nights. She said she was staying late. It wasn't about proof. It was about closure. I didn't save it to a folder called evidence or anything. I just wanted my brain to stop writing fan fiction about what happened. Facts are quiet. They helped. Then I took a breath and said out loud to the empty apartment, okay, let's keep this rated PG. I made a list in my notes app titled Things That Are Funny But Won't Get Me Arrested. That's an actual quote. The list started small. Then it grew teeth. The first move, her Instagram bio. She loved to quote, always some lyrical wisdom about sunrises and coffee. I swapped it for professional over-apologizer, recovering plant killer. If I don't text back, I'm alphabetizing my spice rack again. That's it. Not cruel, not reckless, just specific enough to make her blink hard. Then I went to her Pinterest. It's all kitchen remodels and capsule wardrobe nonsense. I made a new board called Very Specific Sandwiches and filled it with recipes for sandwiches that require 12 ingredients and a blowtorch. Again, harmless. But she's the kind of person who opens Pinterest like it's a vitamin. She was going to see that board at 7 a.m. while nibbling a granola bar and feel very confused. Next, the calendar. Oh, the calendar. This is where I had to be careful. No messing with work meetings. Nothing that breaks anything real. I added recurring events between 6 o'clock and 6:10 p.m. for the next 2 weeks titled, Think About Returning the Borrowed Tupperware. 10 minutes. That's it. I set reminders, you know which ones. I also added a Sunday 11 a.m. event called Apologize to the Neighbor for Parking Like a Diagonally Parked Submarine. We share a tiny lot behind our building. She often ignored the lines like they were decorative. Again, harmless. But if guilt had a ringtone, it would ding at 10:55 a.m. Then I had the idea that made me snort into my mug. Messages. She had a group chat with her friends titled The Witches. It's all memes and weekend plans and strong opinions about throw pillows. I typed one sentence. I'm doing a no screens day on Saturday. Hold me to it. If you see me online, roast me. Not mean. Not outing anything. Just setting a trap for her own thumbs. If she forgot, they'd dogpile her, which, if we're being real, is her favorite hobby when someone else is the target. I also found her Nextdoor account. We joined during the Great Who Keeps Leaving Pizza Boxes in the Recycling Without Breaking Them Down saga. She posted once about a missing cat that was actually a raccoon. I drafted a new post, but didn't publish it because even I have a line to the person who keeps taking just the paper towels from the shared laundry room. May your dryer eat your socks one by one until you learn. I left in drafts. If she ever hit post without reading, well, that's on her. Before any of that, I did the basic decency moves. I turn on two-factor authentication where she didn't have it. I didn't change passwords. I didn't lock her out. I'm petty, not cruel. But I did set the email signature on her personal account to something she'd either hate or secretly love. Sent from my microwave because it has better Wi-Fi. Every email she sent would carry that little shrug. If you can't laugh, what are we doing? Then I made a playlist on her music app, public, titled, I'm Fine, It's Just Allergies, and filled it with the most middle-of-the-road songs that sound like they play over a montage of someone buying succulents. Again, not cruel. Honestly, kind of gift. Who doesn't need a soundtrack for putting the duvet cover on wrong 3 times? I took a break. I stared at the screen and felt the edges of something unclench. The Reds were already down by 2. I closed the laptop and went to bed. I slept. Not like a hero, like someone who finally found the off switch. Now, you might think that's the whole story, that the curtain falls after a clean, petty act and a sigh of relief. But life is less like a curtain and more like blinking fluorescent lights. The next morning, I woke up to my phone buzzing at 6:12 a.m., too early for anything good. It was a text from Cassie, her friend, the UK one. She'd always liked me in a way that felt like she tolerated me, like I was the free bread at a restaurant. The text said, Dude, did you see her story? No, I had not, because I don't follow my ex on socials like I enjoy salt and coffee. I tapped the icon anyway. Her story was 9 tiny dots across the top. She was at the gym, classic. She'd posted a sweaty boomerang, then a picture of a smoothie that looked like lawn clippings. Then the last slide, a screenshot of her own bio with the caption, Who did this? The replies piled up, laughing emojis, You're unwell, hey, this is art. No one suspected me. That's the beauty of being the guy who rarely posts anything more personal than a picture of barbecue. I went to work. I'm at Holt and Son Auto out on Westerville Road. Even though there's no sun in the building, Mr. Holt's kid is a dentist in Dayton. We do oil changes, brakes, the usual. My buddy Marco works the front desk. He's one of those cheerful guys who gives every customer the same greeting, like he's hosting a game show. Come on down, what can we do for you? He knows enough about my mess to say, when I clock in, you good, which is Midwestern for, I can tell you've been staring at your ceiling fan a lot. Better, I said. I'm in it. We spent the morning wrestling with a Ford that had a mysterious rattle, the kind that disappears when the customer is around and then clatters like a pocket full of quarters as soon as they leave. At lunch, I sat in my truck, a 12-year-old F-150 that creaks in ways I find comforting, and ate a ham sandwich. I checked my phone. More buzzes. The Witches group chat had come alive because of my no screens declaration. They were treating it like the Olympics. $10, she cracks by noon. She can't even watch a microwave countdown without checking comments. One of them, Jen, had screenshotted her getting caught liking a tweet at 9:17 a.m. Cheater, she wrote. Not my word. Theirs. I'm avoiding certain vocabulary on principle here. I had to laugh. If there's a justice system in the tiny petty crimes of everyday life, it's your friends busting you when you set your own trap. Around 2, my phone buzzed again. Email. From her. Subject. Can I pick it up? Body. Hey. I left my laptop. Can I swing by tonight? No punctuation, which is how I knew she was trying to be casual. I typed back, sure. I'll be home after 6. Then, because I'm not a monster, it's safe. She wrote, cool. I wrote, cool. We're adults. I went home around 5:30, tidied up the crime scene, by which I mean I put the laptop back exactly where I found it and wiped the smudges off the table with the edge of my t-shirt. I stood in the kitchen and waited. The Reds had lost, by the way. I wasn't surprised. She buzzed at 6:20. I let her in. She stood in the doorway. Same tote bag, different shoes. I braced myself for a speech, or an apology, or a hurricane. None came. She just said, laptop. I handed it to her, like a pizza box. She took it, hugged it like it had feelings, and said thanks. Then she looked around like she'd lost a contact lens. Her eyes landed on the empty place above the couch where the abstract print used to be. You're gonna need to patch those, she said. I have spackle, I said. She nodded. Okay. Then, as if she'd remembered she was supposed to, she added, I'm sorry I yelled. Yep, I said. It wasn't elegant. It was honest. She left. No scene. No explanation. Part of me wanted to chase her down the stairs and ask questions that don't have answers. I didn't. I locked the door, leaned my forehead against it for 1 second like a trope, then shook it off. I made dinner, chicken thighs in a skillet she didn't take. I ate at the table with a laptop-shaped clean rectangle in the dust. At 9, my phone pinged. A message from an unknown number. Very funny. I didn't respond. Then another. The bio? Really? Then a third, which almost made me crack. I do kill plants too often. I put the phone face down and turned on a rerun of a show where people buy houses with confusing priorities. I slept. Round 2. Here's where the story could have emptied out. You did the thing, you got some sleep, you move on, right? But it turns out small, harmless tweaks are like potato chips. You think one will do it. Then you're at the bottom of the bag wondering when you develop this affection for salt and cut corners. On Thursday, I remembered her Amazon account was logged in on the laptop. Again, rules. Nothing expensive, nothing arriving at her door like a practical joke. But lists, oh, lists are fair game. I went to Save for Later, which is a museum of intentions. There were 23 items she'd never buy: a Pilates ring, a book about productivity, a set of glass straws, a head massager. I changed the name of the list to Things Future Me Probably Doesn't Need. Then I made a new wish list called Borrowed, Not Bought, and I put one thing on it: Cassie's hair dryer she never returned. Then, next to it in parentheses, ask nicely. That was it. If she saw it, she'd either laugh or feel the decent twinge that shows up when you realize your maybe annoying habits are not invisible. I also opened her Venmo. She had public payments like everybody else, little notes with emojis that pretend they're private. I changed her privacy setting to friends only. Then I added a note to her bio: pay my friends back promptly since 2024. Call a public service announcement. I've got to say, by Friday, I felt like a weightlifter whose bar is filled with styrofoam plates. It looked heavy. It wasn't. I was carrying almost nothing, and somehow it still felt like a workout. Friday night, I went to a bar with Marco and his wife, Elena. They're that couple that slow dances in their kitchen while waiting for water to boil. If there's a god of good marriages, they tithe regularly. We took a booth under a TV that was playing college football analysis without sound. I got a beer and a burger. Elena got a salad and stole my fries because she doesn't believe in committing to carbs with paperwork. So, Marco said, chewing, "You're a little lighter. Lost 3 pounds of resentment," I said. Elena blinked at me. "You finally, deleted her from your brain?" "Close," I said. I told them everything, leaving out the parts that could be misconstrued as hacking. I emphasized, no harm, no sabotage, no secrets exposed. Just nudges. Like a whisper in her own ear from the conscience, she muted. "You changed your calendar," Elena said, delighted. "That is beautifully petty." I added reminders, I said, to return Tupperware. Marco toasted me with his glass. To Tupperware. We laughed. Then Marco leaned in. "So what's next, Mastermind?" "I think I'm done," I said. "It's enough." "Liar," Elena said with a smirk. "Maybe one more," I admitted. "Here's the one more. Her notes app. She keeps lists for everything. What to pack, grocery items, ideas for hosting. I found one titled Small Ways to Be Better. It had 4 bullets. Drink more water. Put phone away after 9 p.m. stretch. Call grandma. That list made me swallow hard. It was so human it hurt. I added one line, very careful with my words. Tell people what I mean, not just what I feel. That was not a trap. That was a gift I hope she never knows came from me. Then I closed the laptop and felt, for real this time, done. Saturday morning, she broke her no screens pledge by 9:06 a.m. The group chat roasted her like a November turkey. I watched from my couch with a bowl of cereal and a weird sense of calm. It wasn't triumph. It was air, like finally opening a window in a room that smelled like onions for too long. The following week, closure did not arrive on a white horse, but it did choose a beige Corolla. On Monday at the garage, I was under a Honda changing a belt when Marco yelled, "Hey, Romeo!" I rolled out, ready with a socket wrench and an attitude. "What? You've got a visitor." She stood at the front, hands in the pockets of her jacket, scanning the posters for winter tire specials, like she might buy one as a souvenir. I wiped my hands and came around the desk. Marco faded into the back like a good stagehand. "Hey," she said. "Hey," I said. She took a breath. I wanted to say. She looked at the floor. Sorry for how I left. I wasn't fair. You weren't, I said. No edge. Just fact. She nodded. I've been. She stopped, then shook her head like that wasn't the sentence. I saw the Tupperware thing. I almost smiled. You do know which ones? I do, she said. Then she actually laughed, the smallest sound. And my bio. And the calendar. And the sandwich thing was weird. I stand by it. We both stood there, two people who knew each other extremely well, and suddenly not at all. Customers moved around us like a school of fish. She said, so, are you going to keep doing that? No, I said. That was my curtain call. She nodded. Okay. She shifted, ready to go, then added, and I know you saw, stuff. I'm not going to make a speech, but I hope you do your thing and you're okay. I will, I said. It surprised me how true it felt. She left a pack of sticky notes on the counter. The top one read, give Hank back his drill. The arrow, this is yours. I nodded. She slid it to me like a receipt. Bye, she said. Bye, I said. And that should be the end. Two decent people who ran out of road. One of them tapping a few harmless dominoes for peace of mind. But stories are never just endings. They're a string of small scenes that lead you to a new day where you don't count how many times you checked your phone. The new day started simple. I made coffee and didn't think of her. I looked at the empty spot above the couch and ordered a cheap frame poster of the 1990 Reds championship team, because at least those guys try to make me happy. I patched the holes. I went to the grocery store and didn't stand in the produce aisle asking myself what she would want for dinner. I bought what I wanted: frozen pizza, apples, a head of lettuce, real cereal instead of the ancient grains that taste like packing peanuts. A woman in the aisle asked if the Honeycrisp were any good this year. I gave a small lecture I didn't know I had in me. She nodded and picked the same bag I had. That's how you know you've moved a step forward. When you're the person who answers a grocery question like an ambassador for fruit. At home, I put everything away, then took the world's slowest lap through my apartment. It was quieter, yes, but it wasn't accusing anymore. The couch was just a couch. The skillet was just a skillet. I put on the Reds poster when it came, and it looked ridiculous in a way that made the room feel like mine. I was alone and okay, and somehow that felt like an accomplishment, not a sentence. Now, because you came here for a story and not a Home Depot receipt, here's how the trolling played out in the long run. I didn't check her stuff again. I didn't need to. But every once in a while, something filtered to me through the normal channels, like weather through a screen. Cassie bumped into me at the coffee shop weeks later. She lined up behind me and said, so, Therapist of the Year. Excuse me. The notes. The calendar. The bio. I know it was you. She said it without heat. It was almost proud. You got proof. She shrugged. I know her. And I know you. And she would never type the word submarine in a calendar. Busted, I said. She's fine, Cassie said, then added, as if she'd promised herself she would. So are you. I am, I said. I meant it. There were other ripples. Marco started asking customers to set reminders for oil changes on their phones right there at the counter. If we rely on postcards, you'll be back in 2 years with a prayer, he'd joke. One lady laughed and showed him her calendar, full of 10-minute nonsense appointments and gym classes. He asked, what's returned the stinky Tupperware? She said, oh, my roommate put that there. It worked. We all laughed. The world is strangely small when you pay attention to what people name their calendars. I'm not going to pretend I became a different person. I didn't suddenly buy a motorcycle or start doing pottery. I still watch too much sports television while folding laundry wrong. But I did notice small upgrades in how I carry myself. I kept my place tidy enough that if someone came over out of the blue, I wouldn't have to pretend I was staging a rummage sale. I called my dad on Sundays to talk about nothing. I changed my own passwords because karma is a two-way street, and sometimes it has speed cameras. Sometimes, late at night, the whole thing feels like a short movie I watched on an airplane. I can remember the scenes, but it doesn't cling. And when it does try to stick, maybe I hear a song she liked at the grocery store. I do something small and specific to shake it off. Reorganize the junk drawer. Replace the battery in the smoke detector. Text Marco a dumb meme. Human glue comes apart with simple tools. You want a last bit? Fine. 2 months after the bio prank, I got a text from an unknown number that said, "So I returned the Tupperware. Progress." I wrote back, "Proud of you." No name, no punctuation. The adult version of a high five. She sent a thumbs up. That was it. If I had to sum up what happened, not the yelling, not the leaving, but the middle part, I'd say I learned the only comfort that sticks is the kind that doesn't require someone else to hand it to you. You can crack a joke in the middle of a bad week, and that joke will hold a little bit of you upright. You can set a reminder to do something decent, and then actually do it, and that puts a brick back in the wall you thought had crumbled. 4 years together, 3 sharing a lease, a Tuesday exit, a silver rectangle. It would be easy to turn that into a long speech about love and trust and the disaster zone that is communication in the age of notifications. I don't have the energy for speeches. I do have a handful of facts and a weird sense of humor, and that got me through. I didn't smash the laptop. I didn't make a bonfire of feelings. I left a trail of sticky notes in the digital hallway, and then I walked myself out. If you take anything from this, let it be this: I didn't get closure by peeking into a life that had stepped away from mine, even though that's how it started. I got closure by deciding where my line is and living on the right side of it. I didn't post anything cruel. I didn't torch anyone's job or reputation. I made a sandwich board on Pinterest and wrote some better one-liners than I've ever said out loud. And at the end of it, I could sit in my apartment with a Reds poster that clashed with the couch and watch a ball game in peace. The last time I saw her, months later, was at the farmer's market. She was holding a bunch of flowers that looked like they came with a magazine subscription. We were both with other people, not dates, just people. Marco was haggling over tomatoes, and she was with Cassie. Our eyes met, and we both did that polite nod people do when they've shared a lease and a life, and now share a city, like alumni of the same tiny school. Cassie smirked and mouthed submarine. I shook my head. We all moved on, one stall at a time, summer corn, peaches. I bought honey from a guy who swears his bees listen to jazz. Maybe they do. I don't need to investigate everything anymore. On the walk back to my truck, Marco said, "You good?" I said, "Better than good." Then I added, because I'm me, I might alphabetize my spice rack. Marco Esquintez. You don't have a spice rack. I will, I said. Step 1 of my whole life makeover. We laughed. The day was bright in that Ohio way where the sun is doing its best and the air still smells like somebody mowed something. I put the honey on the passenger seat like a buckled-in toddler, turned the key, and headed home. No bio to change, no calendar to nudge. Just a man who knows where the Tupperware is and where he's going next. All I did in the end was nudge a few dominoes and then stop. She'll figure her side out. I figure out mine. There's a weird kind of mercy in that. And if my phone buzzes at 6 p.m. with a reminder to do something small and decent, I do it. Not because she will see it, because I will. I promised you early on that things would escalate. They did, but only enough to take off the weight. The drama happened, sure. The ending was weirder. I started laughing again. That's the part no one tells you. Sometimes the best revenge is 10 minutes on your calendar that says, breathe, then move on. So I do, and I'm good at it now.